The entire situation had ended up in a massive anticlimax for the Claw and the crew serving upon it. The chaining had been located in the ROG system, with the stolen man being used as a gambling token. He managed to get loose and start a fight that had apparently burnt down a large percentage of one of the more expensive casinos before freebooter reinforcements arrived, and they helped a massive mutiny which killed most of the slavers that left the chaining under the control and refit of the Dauntless. Apparently, the official story was going to be that the soldier had led the mutiny alone and was now a traumatized and brutal bounty hunter seeking to slake his hatred for slavers at Laser Point. The ship was renamed the Chainbreaker and is getting a bounty hunting license pushed through fast and hard. Apparently, the story was already being distorted as well, which would be interesting if not for the outright headache Agenda was dealing with. You see, she had been flying under the IFF of EFL Tiger, and the men had managed to talk her into landing on one of the rough planets for some R&R in natural air and gravity. She had said yes, and now she was dealing with madness, as apparently all the energy they'd been building up for a rescue mission had turned into a kidnapping. "I get the impression that you're upset with us," Miles says from his place hauling the massive sentient he and the rest of the men had wrapped in chains. "Really? Was it the growling, the posture, or the glare?" she asks furiously. "The snarl, actually." Miles returns. "Look, just because we dabbled in slave-taking doesn't mean it's something to be done casually. Furthermore, there is no call for these peoples in the galaxy, no market." "Slave-taking? Captain, this is clearly an animal, a dangerous animal that on record has killed over 100 campers. This is more pest control. Well, hunting too, but pest control. The Chelt Flame Spewers were proven fully sentient nearly 100 years ago. They're not fully evolved yet, but they're people," she counters Miles's protest. "So you're telling me that this dragon-looking beast is smart enough to know that burning down entire families for entertainment is fucking wrong?" Ryu demands, and she pauses. Jake grabs the chains, keeping the smoking mouth of the spewer shut, and looks it in the eye. "It has a brain, boys! Fine then, it's not a hunt. It's vigilante justice with cannibalism to hide the body. I'm getting my fucking dragon steaks." Miles' amends with a tinge of sheer viciousness she hadn't seen in him before. "And coat. I'm still getting a fucking dragon wing coat, and I'll do horrible things to anyone that gets in my way," Franklin declares from near the back of the gaggle of lunatics. "By the goddess, I know this is going to get worse before it gets better, so just give me the big blow and get it over with." Agenda groans into her paw. Of course these Axiom-starved men would be like this. They're men, and they're starved of Axiom. All the nutrients that would have gone to keep them sane went to keeping them alive. Our next meal here had some sort of larder filled from its latest rampage. Apparently the evil fucker has a taste for veal, so we called down as much of medical as possible and letting you know in no uncertain terms that dragon bitch here is going to die, and many of us are curious as to what giant asshole lizard monster tastes like after being barbecued," Miles says, and things start falling into place. This is as much about some form of moral outrage as anything else. "I see. This doesn't go anywhere until I get back," she says before pacing off to where half her ship's medical personnel are crowding around the cave the men had dragged the spewer out of. "All right, girls. Someone explain to me what veal is and why it's so awful for a flame spewer to—" she demands as some of the nurses back away to leave a clean line between her and a very badly beaten child. She looms over and takes in a deep whiff to get the scent beyond hurting. It's a young male of her kind, maybe 4 years old. Hey, little Loper. Are you all right?" she asks gently as she pads up to him. She glances back to see that the men are staring at her through the gap. She nods. She understands now. Veal is beaten and abused young. She'll get further clarification later. "I'm Captain Agenda Lilpaw. What's your name?" I'm Johnny," he says softly as he sniffs up at her. She holds out one of her forepaws for him to take, and he does. You smell like a mommy." "Not yet, but soon," she says softly. It's all she can do to not simply sweep the pup into her chest and hold him there, but with all his bruising and maybe even broken bones that would only bring him further pain. "Is that why you're so big?" he asks, and she smiles. "Yes. Before a lady becomes a mommy, they grow really big and soft to show off how good a mommy they can be." They slim down after so they can focus more on being a mommy than just looking like one, though. Huh? He asks, and she leans over and gives him a slight lick on the forehead. Don't worry about it. Now, Johnny, what's your second name? Agenda asks again. She can feel her instincts hitting her like a mallet. If she can't find this pup's family sometime soon, then she'll become his family. Howl, he says, and she resists, groaning in frustration. Howl is a name common enough that he might as well said his last name was anybody. All right, little Howl, let's get you someplace safe and fed so we can find your family, all right? She asks, and he gives out a sniffle as his eyes start to water before he rushes forward and hugs her. There, little one. You're safe now. You're safe. She coos as the dam breaks and he starts sobbing into her chest while griping her fur as tightly as he can. Captain, the other child, she... Dr. Lillian Greywind begins before shaking her head. Agenda turns the situation over in her mind as she mentally berates herself for somehow becoming a bleeding heart since meeting the humans. Apparently, pregnancy has an effect on a girl. Why didn't anyone warn her? She gently tucks her arm under the sobbing pup and slowly stands up before turning around to look at the men wrestling the beast as it tries to make another escape. A futile one. I'll want a steak and none of your evil spices, she says as she passes them. Yes, ma'am. What about the boy? The questions came from halfway down the line of men keeping the beast pinned. Ryu, unless her ears are lying. Maybe. Have a few extra ready? She doesn't even look at who's spoken. They're grown men. They don't need constant comfort. A part of her mind thinks maybe she shouldn't have just picked him up, but if there was any danger, then the ship's doctors would have stopped her. She carries him into the Tiger and with plenty of warning ahead onto the ship's helm. It had the safest and most comfortable seat on the entire ship there, her personal command couch. Her own bed would be better, but it was still musty and drenched in the scent of her and Miles enjoying themselves upon it. It's only when she's settled herself down and cuddled poor little Johnny close that she realizes that several of the nurses had been keeping pace. I see the maternal instincts have hit you, Captain, Dr. Lena says with a smile as she canters around and shakes her antlers a bit. The gentle Carib takes a deep breath and leans in almost nose to little Johnny as he glows ever so slightly. She then leans back with a nod. He just needs some time now. We've gotten ahead of infections, and the men put a stop to the monster before it could tenderize him further. He'll be fine, but he needs his family captain, she says before pacing around them both for a bit, shaking her antlers the entire time before nodding and cantering away. The little pup nuzzles into her, and she holds him gently and closely to offer what comfort she can. With only the little gestures from her to get things done, the ship prepares, and she feels the entire thing vibrate. Captain! Mercy says into her communicator. It's low, so she doesn't bother Johnny much. What? We did a look around. We couldn't find anything left of the family but some wreckage. The ID we've been able to peel off the damaged cards and chunks of charcoal say that the family is 50 girls large. 10 of them took him here to expand his horizons. We've got contact info for the rest. Good now. Captain, we could just... stop. We're out of that business, Mercy. Besides, if we did, the men would likely turn on us, which puts their entire species on our case. Do you really want to fight your... what's his family name again? Takata. His proper name is Ryu Takata, or Takata Ryu in the ways of his people. Hoping to visit someday? They live in cruel space. I'll never see his home. Apparently he's missing some festival where soft pink petals soar through the air due to the cherry trees around his homeland. It's amazingly mean that they're talking about a place they want to show us but can't. Agenda notes wryly. Are the men getting homesick? That won't end well. Why can't they show you? Johnny asks, and she smiles down at him. He's bouncing back well if he's already asking questions. He might recover well. There are men on this ship that come from a very dangerous place. It's not dangerous for them, but it is for every other race. They know it's dangerous, but it's still their home, and they miss it, so they talk about it. She says, and he blinks. Are they from the same place as the monster? No, even the monster can't live where they live. Can I live there? No, only they can. Why? He asks. Have you heard of cruel space? A part of the galaxy that all the axiom flows to and away from? The black bit at the end of all the lines and maps? Yeah, everyone knows about it. They're from inside it. They only just escaped, she says, and he gasps. They're okay. A little strange, but okay. Really? He asks. Yes, really, Miles says, walking in. Wait, what are we talking about? There's a savory scent that washes over the bridge. I brought you some well-done skewer steak as requested, and a smaller one for our little friend, he says, handing her a plate and putting one in front of Johnny. Is that, Johnny asks him, the monster part of it anyways? You're a man, a grown-up boy, right? Johnny asks, after staring at the plate in front of him for a few moments. Yes, Miles says, crouching down to Johnny's level as the tiny loper looks up at him with pleading eyes. Will it ever stop hurting? Pain of loss? It does and doesn't. You get used to it. The thing about it is that you have a choice, an important one. You can choose to let it hold you down, to always hurt, to hold it close, or you can choose to step above it. This is the worst day of your life. It can be something that holds you down or something you rise above. It won't ever not hurt, but you can use the hurt to grow stronger. Miles explains as little Johnny looks up at him in shock. That sounds like experience talking, Agenda says softly. I've had some tragedy and pain in my life. Who hasn't? This is just the best advice I can give for it. The nightmares will be bad, kiddo, but you survived. You did good, he says, and Johnny sniffs before picking up a small bit of the flame spewer in front of and taking a bite. His eyes light up. There we go. Fill yourself up, kiddo. We've already carved up most of the beast and have it in storage for later. At little Johnny and her own nose's hearty recommendation, Agenda takes a bite out of the steak that had been offered to her, and then has to restrain herself from all but drinking it down. How'd you make this so tasty? Johnny asks, and Agenda has to agree with the question. There are a lot of ways to cook a steak. We're cooking them all the way through, to be sure, but that doesn't mean there aren't a dozen small tricks for me to use. This is just basic, of course. They get really good when we spice them properly. No, you will not be serving us that poison. It's not poison. The things you think are tasty are banned in 1,000 star systems. They're poison. You eat chemical weapons. No, you girls are just wimpy. Enjoy the meal, little man, Miles says, ruffling Johnny's mane a little. Now, does anyone in here want some flame spewer steaks? Aren't they thinking beings? Yes, but this one was a mass-murdering monster and deserved to die. With so much perfectly edible meat lying around, the boys and I are having a little grill-off. A fierce competition to see who can cook the best. Are you trying to curve up my ship? Agenda asks him with a sly smile as she moves to the second steak on her plate. Is it working? Yes, she replies as she takes a big bite and savors the taste.